700 years. 700 years of purifying fire. 700 years separated from God, all because of a single sin, a sin that most people commit every day without giving it a second thought. Padre Pio encountered such a soul. He spoke with it, and what he discovered completely changed how he taught about purgatory. This happened in San Giovanni Rotondo. On a night in 1953, Padre Pio was in deep prayer when he sensed a presence in the room. It wasn't demonic. It was different. It was a presence filled with sorrow, longing, and regret. A presence begging for help. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the sin that kept this soul imprisoned for 7 centuries. I'll share what Padre Pio learned from this conversation with a soul in purgatory, and I'll explain how you can avoid the same fate. But I need to warn you, the sin you're about to discover isn't what you imagine. It's not murder, it's not adultery, it's not theft. It's something much more common, something you might be doing right now without even realizing it. The soul appeared to Padre Pio in the form of an elderly man. He was wearing clothes from another era. His face bore the marks of indescribable suffering, but his eyes held something more, a desperate hope, a last chance at liberation. Padre Pio asked him who he was. The man replied that he had lived in Italy during the 13th century. He had been a successful merchant, a respected man in the community, a practicing Catholic who attended Mass every Sunday, a family man who loved his wife and children. By all outward appearances, he was a good man, a man who should have gone straight to heaven. But that's not what happened. The merchant told his story to Padre Pio, and the saint listened in silence, with tears streaming down his face, because he immediately understood the gravity of what he was hearing. It all started with a business dispute. Another merchant had spread rumors about the quality of the goods he sold. Lies, slander. The rumors damaged his business. Customers stopped buying. His reputation was tarnished. His family suffered financially. The man was furious, righteously furious, he thought. He had been wronged, defamed for no reason. His anger was understandable, natural, human. He confronted his adversary, demanded a public retraction. The other merchant refused, said he had only spoken the truth. The argument escalated, harsh words were exchanged, and at that moment something happened in the man's heart, something he would nurture for the rest of his life. He decided never to forgive. It wasn't an impulsive decision. It was deliberate, conscious, calculated. He looked into his adversary's eyes and said to himself, "This man has destroyed my reputation, hurt my family, ruined my name. I will never forgive him. Never. As long as I live, I will carry this grudge, and if he dies before me, I will continue to hate his memory." And that's exactly what he did. For 40 years, the merchant carried this grudge. He refused any attempt at reconciliation. When mutual friends tried to mediate, he rejected them. When the adversary himself, years later, begged for forgiveness on his deathbed, he refused to visit him. He let the man die without the forgiveness he implored. And during all this time, the merchant continued to attend Mass, continued to receive communion, continued to consider himself a good Catholic. After all, he hadn't committed any serious sin. He hadn't killed anyone. He hadn't stolen. He hadn't cheated on his wife. He just wouldn't forgive a man who deserved his hatred. Padre Pio interrupted the story at this point. "Did you confess during those 40 years? The merchant replied that he had many times. He confessed small sins, impatience, laziness, harsh words with his wife. But he never confessed the grudge, never mentioned that he refused to forgive because he didn't think it was a sin. And then the merchant died and discovered the truth. At the moment of death, his soul was judged, and what seemed like a virtuous life revealed itself to be stained by a single decision, a decision that contaminated everything. Every Mass he attended with resentment in his heart. Every communion he received without being in true communion with his neighbor. Every prayer he made while refusing to forgive. The merchant didn't go to hell. His faith was real. His love for God was genuine, albeit imperfect. But he couldn't enter heaven, not with that weight on his soul, not with that open wound that he himself refused to heal for 4 decades. Purgatory welcomed him, and there the purification began. Padre Pio asked what purgatory was like. The merchant described something the saint would never forget. "It is a place of fire," he said, "but it is not the fire of hell. It is the fire of God's love, a love so intense, so pure, so absolute, that it burns away everything that is not love. And the grudge that I carried for 40 years, that stubborn refusal to forgive, was such a deep stain that it needed centuries to be purified." The saint asked if the merchant had encountered his adversary in purgatory. The answer was surprising. "Yes," said the merchant. "He was there when I arrived, but he had already been released. His stay was much shorter than mine, because he asked for forgiveness before he died, even though I refused to give that forgiveness. The act of asking already partially purified him, already showed repentance, already demonstrated humility. On the other hand, never asked forgiveness for not forgiving, never recognized that my grudge was a sin, never repented for carrying that hatred, and that is why I needed much more time to be purified." Padre Pio was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, why did the merchant appear to him specifically? Why now, after 700 years? The answer came with a humility that spanned centuries of purification. "Because you can help me be released," said the merchant. "My purification is almost complete. But one thing is missing. I need someone on earth to pray for me. I need the holy sacrifice of the Mass offered for my soul. And I need something more." The merchant paused, his eyes filled with a pain that Padre Pio recognized. It was the pain of someone who finally understands what they have done. The pain of someone who has spent centuries confronting their own failings. "I need you to tell my story," said the merchant. "I need people to know. I need them to understand what I didn't understand in life. That the refusal to forgive is a serious sin. That carrying a grudge for years, decades, a lifetime, has eternal consequences. That every time we pray the Lord's Prayer and say, 'Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us,' we are making a pact that I broke for 40 years. Padre Pio promised to tell the story. He vowed to celebrate Masses for the merchant's soul, and he vowed to teach about forgiveness with an urgency that few saints had ever shown. The merchant smiled, for the first time in 700 years. And then he began to fade, but before disappearing completely, he left one final warning. "Tell them," the merchant said, "that purgatory is full of people like me. People who went to Mass, who prayed the Rosary, who fasted on Fridays, but who carried grudges in their hearts, who refused to forgive, who justified their hatred with perfectly reasonable arguments. Tell them that I was right to be angry. The adversary really hurt me, really lied about me, really caused damage to my family. My anger was justified by human standards. But God does not judge by human standards. God judges by the standard that He Himself has set, and that standard is clear: forgive, and you shall be forgiven." The merchant vanished, and Padre Pio spent the rest of the night in prayer. Prayer for the merchant, prayer for all the souls in purgatory carrying the same burden, and prayer for all the living people who still had a chance to forgive before it was too late. The next morning, Padre Pio celebrated Mass for the merchant, and in the weeks that followed, he spoke about forgiveness with an intensity that surprised even those who knew him well. He celebrated 30 consecutive Masses for the merchant, a triple novena, each Mass offered specifically for the release of that soul who had waited 700 years. The friars who attended noticed that Padre Pio wept during these Masses. Not from sadness, from compassion, from urgency, from a deep desire to see that soul finally free. When Friar asked why so many Masses were necessary, Padre Pio explained that it wasn't necessarily about quantity, it was about intensity of intention. Each Mass was a sacrifice. Each sacrifice eased the soul a little more. And 30 Masses offered with profound love had immense power. He also explained something important about purgatory that the merchant had revealed. The souls there don't experience time the way we do. 700 years for us is incomprehensible, but for them, it's a different experience. It's not boredom, it's not monotony. It's an intense and continuous process of purification. Each moment is filled with the work of making the soul worthy of heaven. But that doesn't diminish the suffering, Padre Pio added. The separation from God is real. The pain of purification is real. And the gratitude when someone on earth prays for them is also real. The souls in purgatory know when we're praying, and they give thanks in ways we can't even imagine. Padre Pio recounted that several people in the following days came to him saying they had dreamed of deceased relatives asking for forgiveness. It was as if the merchant's story had opened a door, as if the souls in purgatory knew that now there was someone on earth teaching about this, and they were seizing the opportunity to ask for help. One elderly woman came crying. She had dreamed of her brother, with whom she hadn't spoken in 30 years when he died. In the dream, he asked her to forgive him for a disputed inheritance decades earlier. She woke up knowing she needed to do something. Padre Pio guided her. "Forgive him now," he said, out loud, "and have Masses celebrated for him. Your brother may have been waiting for this forgiveness for years. It may be the only thing that's keeping him from entering heaven." The woman obeyed. She forgave her brother right there, in the confessional, and she had a novena of Masses celebrated for him. Weeks later, she returned to say that she had had another dream. Her brother appeared in peace. He smiled at her and disappeared in a bright light. But wait, because I'm not finished yet. Because Padre Pio revealed more details about what happens to those who refuse to forgive. And what he taught will make you rethink every grudge you carry. The saint explained that unforgiveness is a unique sin, different from other sins. Most sins are isolated acts. You commit it, you repent, you confess, and you're forgiven. But unforgiveness is a continuous state. It's a sin you commit every moment that you choose not to forgive. Every day that passes with bitterness in your heart, you're sinning again. It's a sin that multiplies with time. That's why, Padre Pio explained, the merchant spent 700 years in purgatory, not for a single act of unforgiveness, but for 40 years of continuous refusal, 40 years of sin renewed with each dawn, 40 years of conscious choices to keep the bitterness alive. Do the math. The saint would tell those who sought him out, if you carry a grudge for 10 years, it's not one sin, it's 3,650 sins, one for every day that you woke up and chose not to forgive. If you carry it for 20 years, it's more than 7,000 sins. For 40 years, almost 15,000 sins, 15,000 conscious choices to disobey Christ's commandment. A man sought out Padre Pio in 1954. Troubled by what he had heard about the merchant. He had been carrying a grudge against his own father for 25 years. His father had been abusive, cruel. He had made his childhood a living hell, and when his father died, the man felt relief. He felt that he was finally free, but he never forgave him. Padre Pio listened to the story with compassion. He understood that some wounds are deep, that some people hurt us in ways that seem unforgivable, that anger, in these cases, seems not only justified, but necessary. But then the saint asked a question that changed that man's life. Do you want to spend more time in purgatory than your father? The man didn't understand. Padre Pio explained, your father committed grave sins against you. That's true, and he's certainly paying for those sins now. But if you refuse to forgive him, you're committing a different sin, a sin that accumulates with time, and if you continue like this for another 25 years, you may end up spending more time in purgatory than the man who hurt you. The man was shocked. He'd never thought about it that way. He had never considered that his refusal to forgive had consequences for himself, not just for the father who was already dead. Padre Pio continued, forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you. When you forgive, you're not saying that what the person did was acceptable. You're not minimizing the pain you suffered. You're not pretending that nothing happened. You're simply letting go of the rope that keeps you tied to that person. You're freeing yourself from the weight you carry. You're obeying Christ, not because it's easy, but because he commanded it. The man asked how to forgive someone who was already dead, someone who never asked for forgiveness, someone who might not even recognize that he had done anything wrong. Padre Pio gave practical instructions. First, go to confession. Confess your lack of forgiveness as a sin. Acknowledge that it was wrong to carry that grudge for so long. Second, pray for your father. It doesn't matter what he did in life. His soul might be in purgatory, needing prayers. By praying for him, you demonstrate mercy, and the mercy you give is the mercy you will receive. Third, speak aloud. Say the words, I forgive my father, even if you don't feel it yet. Even if it seems fake, say the words. The feeling will come later. Obedience comes first. The man followed the instructions. He went to confession that very day, and when he confessed 25 years of resentment, he wept like he hadn't wept since he was a child. The confessor was impressed by the depth of his repentance. In the following weeks, the man prayed for his father every day. At first, the words tasted bitter in his mouth. How could he ask God to help the man who had caused him so much suffering? But gradually, something began to change. The prayers became easier. His heart grew lighter. The weight he had carried for a quarter of a century began to diminish. One day, the man had a dream. He saw his father, not the abusive father he had known in life, a father transformed, purified. The father looked at him and said only 2 words, "Forgive me." And the man in the dream responded, "I forgive you." He woke up in peace, a peace he hadn't felt since childhood, a peace that came from finally letting go of the rope that held him prisoner to the past. He returned to Padre Pio to tell him what had happened. The saint smiled. "Your father has been liberated," he said. "Your prayers made a difference, and your forgiveness completed his purification. He is in heaven now, and when you get there, you will find him, not as the man who hurt you, but as the father he should have been, transformed by the love of God, purified of all his flaws, ready to finally be the father you deserved." The man wept again. But this time, they were tears of joy, of liberation, of a wound finally healed. Padre Pio told this story many times afterwards. He used it to teach that forgiveness doesn't only benefit the one who is forgiven. It benefits primarily the one who forgives. It's an act of obedience that brings freedom, a difficult decision that produces peace, a sacrifice that results in blessing. The super thanks down below is a way for you to support this work of bringing these truths that the modern world ignores. We live in a culture that celebrates grudges. that applauds those who cut people out of their lives, that justifies decades of silence and resentment. But Padre Pio knew that this path leads to centuries of purification. And now, you also know. But hold on to that, because Padre Pio also explained why forgiveness is so difficult, and what he taught about it will help you understand your own struggles. The saint explained that forgiving goes against our fallen nature. We were wounded by the betrayal of Adam and Eve, and since then, the human instinct is to protect ourselves, to retaliate, to hold on to grudges as shields against future wounds. Resentment feels like armor. It seems to protect us from being hurt again. But it's an armor that imprisons, said Padre Pio. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're trapping yourself. You think you're punishing the person who hurt you, but you're punishing yourself. Every day you carry resentment, you're drinking poison, hoping the other person dies. A woman sought out Padre Pio in 1956. She couldn't forgive her sister. Her sister had seduced her fiancé years before, had destroyed her wedding before it even began, had stolen the man she loved and married him. The woman had carried this resentment for 12 years, 12 years of anger, 12 years of resentment, 12 years of refusing to speak to her sister, to attend family gatherings where she was present, to even utter her name. Padre Pio listened to the story with patience. Then he asked something unexpected. Do you still love that man? The woman thought, and realized that she didn't. The love had died long ago. She had moved on, had married another, had built a family, had a good life. Then why do you still carry the resentment? Asked the saint. If the love is gone, why does the hatred remain? The woman had no answer. She had never stopped to think about it. The resentment had become a habit, a part of her identity. She was the betrayed sister, the victim, and letting go of that resentment seemed to deny the injustice she had suffered. Padre Pio understood. You think that if you forgive, you'll be saying that what she did was acceptable, that it didn't matter, that you weren't really hurt. The woman nodded. Exactly. The saint shook his head. Forgiveness isn't amnesia. It's not pretending nothing happened. It's not minimizing the pain. It's a decision to let go, to not let that event continue controlling your life, to not give your sister power over you for any longer than she already had. Think about it, continued Padre Pio. Your sister probably doesn't even think about it anymore. She moved on, got married, had children, lives her life, but you spend 12 years dwelling on the betrayal. Who is being punished, her or you? The woman began to understand. The resentment she carried wasn't affecting her sister. It was affecting only herself. It was taking up space in her mind. It was consuming emotional energy. It was poisoning her own peace. Padre Pio gave the same advice he gave to everyone. Go to confession, pray for your sister, and say the words aloud, I forgive. The woman resisted at first. It seemed unfair. She was the victim. Why should she be the one to forgive? But eventually, she obeyed. She went to confession, confessed 12 years of resentment, and when she left the confessional, she felt something she didn't expect. Relief. As if a stone had been removed from her chest, as if a prison had been opened. She hadn't realized the weight she carried until she released it. In the following weeks, she prayed for her sister. At first, with difficulty, then with more ease, and finally with genuine desire for her well-being. One day she met her sister at a family gathering. For the first time in 12 years, she was able to look at her without anger. She was able to talk without bitterness. She was even able to hug her. The sister cried. She thought forgiveness would never come. She had carried guilt for all those years, guilt that the woman never knew existed. The two reconciled that day, and the woman returned to Padre Pio to thank him. The saint smiled and said something she would remember forever. "You didn't only forgive your sister, you forgave yourself, because the resentment we carry for others always ends up condemning us too." Padre Pio also taught about the different levels of forgiveness. And this is important to understand, because many people think they can't forgive, when in reality, they've already taken the first step. The first level is decisional forgiveness. It's simply choosing to forgive. Saying the words, making the decision doesn't require feeling. It doesn't require you to like the person. It doesn't require you to forget what happened. It's just a choice of the will, and that's the only level God requires. The second level is emotional forgiveness. That's when your feelings start to align with that decision, when the anger subsides, when peace starts to creep in. This can take time, months, years, and it's not mandatory. You can decisively forgive someone without ever feeling completely emotionally forgiven. The third level is relational forgiveness. That's when the relationship is restored, when trust is rebuilt, when you can be around each other again. But Padre Pio warned that this level isn't always possible, or even desirable. Sometimes the person who hurt us is dangerous. Sometimes the relationship was toxic. Sometimes forgiveness means letting go, not reconnecting. A young woman once asked Padre Pio if she should reconnect with her father, who had abused her as a child. She had chosen to forgive him. She had prayed for him. She had released her bitterness, but she didn't feel it was safe to be around him. Padre Pio was clear. Forgiveness doesn't mean tolerating abuse. You can forgive someone and still maintain distance. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. Forgiveness frees your heart. It doesn't necessarily open your home. The woman felt relief. She was afraid that forgiving meant allowing the abuse to continue, but she understood that forgiveness and boundaries aren't contradictory. You can forgive from afar. You can forgive and never have contact again. The important thing is that your heart is free from bitterness. Padre Pio also taught that some people need to forgive themselves. And that, he said, can be even harder than forgiving others. A man came to him carrying 20 years of guilt. When he was young, he had caused an accident that killed his best friend Mike. It was his fault, pure recklessness. And even after confessing, after doing penance, after receiving absolution, he couldn't forgive himself. He carried the weight of that death every single day. Padre Pio listened attentively. Then he asked, "Has God already forgiven you?" The man replied that yes, he had. He had confessed many times. He had received absolution. He knew intellectually that he was forgiven. "And who are you," asked the saint, "to refuse the forgiveness that God offers? When you refuse to forgive yourself for something that God has already forgiven, you're saying that your judgment is more valid than God's. You're putting your opinion of yourself above the opinion of the Creator." The man had never thought of it that way. He thought his inability to forgive himself was a sign of deep repentance, of a sensitive conscience, of humility. Padre Pio corrected that view. "What you call humility is pride in disguise," he said. "True humility is accepting God's forgiveness, even when you can't forgive yourself. It's trusting in His mercy more than in your own feelings of guilt." The saint gave him specific instructions. Every time the guilt comes, say out loud, "God has forgiven me. Who am I to disagree with Him?" Repeat that as many times as necessary, until your mind begins to accept what your spirit already knows. The man followed the instructions for months. At first, the words seemed hollow, but little by little, something began to change. The guilt didn't disappear completely, but it lost its power. It lost its ability to paralyze. The man was finally able to live, not just survive. He returned to Padre Pio a year later, transformed. The saint smiled and said, "Now you can pray for your friend, Mike, with peace in your heart. Before, your prayers were contaminated by guilt. Now they can be offered with pure love. And pure love is what the souls in purgatory need most." Now pay attention, because Padre Pio also revealed how forgiveness affects purgatory, not just yours, but that of other people. The saint taught that when we forgive someone who has already died, we can shorten that person's time in purgatory. Our forgiveness, offered from the heart, can alleviate the pains of those who hurt us. It can accelerate their purification. It can open doors that were closed. He told the story of a woman who harbored resentment toward her mother-in-law, Carol. Carol had been cruel for years. She had criticized everything she did. She had tried to destroy her marriage. She had made her life a living hell. When Carol died, the woman felt relief. She was finally free. But the resentment remained. Even in death, Carol still occupied space in her mind, still provoked anger. One day, the woman had a dream. She saw Carol in purgatory. She saw the suffering, and she heard a plea for forgiveness. She woke up disturbed and sought out Padre Pio. The saint confirmed that the dream was probably genuine. "Your mother-in-law, Carol, needs your forgiveness to be freed," he said. "As long as you don't forgive, she will remain trapped. Your resentment is literally holding her soul back." The woman was shocked. She had never thought that her forgiveness had that power. She never imagined that she could trap or free someone in the afterlife. Padre Pio explained that our relationships don't end with death. The wounds we cause and receive continue to have consequences. The forgiveness we give or refuse affects not only our destiny, but the destiny of others. The woman went home and did something difficult. She knelt down and said out loud, "I forgive my mother-in-law, Carol, for all the criticism, for all the cruelties, for all the years of suffering. I forgive you completely." That night, she had another dream. She saw Carol again, but this time the scene was different. There was light. There was peace. Carol smiled, thanked her, and ascended toward that light. The woman woke up knowing that the forgiveness had worked, that Carol had been freed, and that she herself was also freer than ever before. Padre Pio told these stories to show the extraordinary power of forgiveness. It's not just a matter of obedience, it's a matter of spiritual power. When we forgive, we liberate. When we refuse to forgive, we imprison. And sometimes we imprison not only ourselves, but also those who need our forgiveness to find peace. Comment down below if this video touched you. Write "I forgive" if you're going to choose to forgive someone today. Write "liberation" if you understand how bitterness imprisons you. Or write "prayers" if you have someone deceased who needs your forgiveness to be liberated. Padre Pio left one final teaching about the merchant who spent 700 years in purgatory. After celebrating masses for him and telling his story as promised, the saint had one last visit. The merchant appeared again, but this time he carried no pain. He carried no suffering. His face shone with a light that Padre Pio recognized immediately, the light of a purified soul, ready for heaven. "Thank you," said the merchant. "Your masses helped me. Your story being told helped me. But more than anything, the forgiveness you taught helped others not to make the same mistake I did." Padre Pio asked if there was a last message, the merchant thought, and then said something the saint never forgot. "Tell them that 700 years seems like a very long time." And it is. But from the point of view of eternity, it's a blink of an eye. What matters is where you'll be forever, and the path to heaven passes through forgiveness, always, without exception. The merchant began to ascend. The light around him grew more intense, and before disappearing completely, he left one last word. Forgive, not because it's easy, not because others deserve it. Forgive because Christ commanded it, and because you yourself will need forgiveness when you stand before him. The vision ended, and Padre Pio remained silent for a long time, thinking of all the people who harbored grudges, of all the souls in purgatory, because of sins that seemed small, of all the missed opportunities to forgive while there was still time. He made a promise that day. As long as he lived, he would teach about forgiveness. As long as he had a voice, he would warn about the consequences of bitterness. As long as he could celebrate Mass, he would offer it for those who were trapped by not having forgiven or not having been forgiven. And that's why this story is being told now to you at this moment, because there is still time. If you harbor a grudge against someone, this is your opportunity. If you refuse to forgive a past hurt, this is your warning. If you justify your hatred with perfectly reasonable arguments, this is your calling. You could spend 700 years paying for a decision you can change now, or you can choose to forgive today. Go to confession. Pray for those who hurt you. Say the words out loud. The choice is yours, and it starts at this moment. Padre Pio intercedes for you, for the wounds you carry, for the grudges you justify, for the people you refuse to forgive. He prays that you make a different choice than the merchant did, that your purification is measured in days, not centuries, that you find the freedom that only comes when we let go of what binds us. The merchant is in heaven now, freed after 700 years, and if he could speak to you directly, he would say one simple thing. Don't wait, don't justify, don't postpone. Forgive now while you still can.